Lizzie loves Christmas. Lizzie loves Christmas. A lovable Lizzie adventure. It was nearly Christmas. Mrs. Dimpletoes was busy wrapping up the presents and putting them under the Christmas tree. Lizzie took a big sniff of each present. "Oh, how delicious some of the presents smell," she thought. After Mrs. Dimpletoes had finished wrapping the presents, she checked her watch and decided it was time to cook the dinner. While Mrs. Dimpletoes was busy in the kitchen, Lizzie ran back to the presents under the Christmas tree. One of the presents smelled very, very nice. So after a quick look to check that Mrs. Dimpletoes wasn't in the room, Lizzie ripped open the wrapping. Inside was a lovely big box of chocolates. Lizzie poured open the box and started to eat the chocolates. "Yum, yum," she thought as she gulped them down. Before long she had eaten the whole box. Lizzie felt great. She ran through the kitchen, down the hallway, and around the lounge. "What are you doing, Lizzie?" exclaimed Mrs. Dimpletoes. She had never seen Lizzie doing that before. Before long Lizzie started to feel sick. Her tummy hurt and she did lots of bottom bobs. Her tail drooped between her legs. She ran into the backyard and was sick. When Mrs. Dimpletoes heard all the noise, she went to see what was happening. She saw the empty box of chocolates by the tree. "You naughty, naughty dog, Lizzie," she yelled. "Chocolates make dogs very, very sick." She grabbed Lizzie and quickly drove her to see Mr. Vet. He would know what to do. Mr. Vet poked at Lizzie and felt her tummy. "Lizzie, that was very silly of you to eat the chocolates," he said. Then he went to the cupboard and took out a big needle to give Lizzie an injection in her bottom. "Ouch, that hurts!" Lizzie yelled. Lizzie's tummy was still sore and now her bottom was sore as well. She felt very sorry she had eaten the chocolates. Mr. Vet gave Mrs. Dimpletoes some pills to take home for Lizzie. At home, Mrs. Dimpletoes put the pills on the kitchen bench and then went to give Lizzie a cuddle. Later on, Mr. Dimpletoes came home from work with a terrible headache. He went to the kitchen for a pill to make his headache better. He saw the pill on the bench. Without checking the label, he took one and swallowed it. Mr. Dimpletoes went into the lounge. He saw Mrs. Dimpletoes sitting on a chair cuddling Lizzie. "What's wrong with Lizzie?" he asked. After Mrs. Dimpletoes told him the story, Mr. Dimpletoes suddenly started to shake. "Oh no," he said, "not the pills on the bench." Mr. Dimpletoes had swallowed one of Lizzie dog's pills. "That was really silly of you, dear," laughed Mrs. Dimpletoes. "I wonder if you will start to bark." Mr. Dimpletoes was not sure. Suddenly he felt very sick too. Mrs. Dimpletoes tucked Lizzie and Mr. Dimpletoes into bed together until they felt better. Lizzie had learned an important lesson from then on. She never ate chocolates again, and as for Mr. Dimpletoes, he always checked the label on the pills before he swallowed them. The end.